Hey everyone, no matter where you happen to be around the world, glad that you're here along with us today. My name is Mike Fitz with explore.org, and we're looking at some of the most beautiful scenes that you can find on our live streaming webcams. We are in Honduras right now looking at coral reefs, tropical fish, and that's what we're going to be talking about during this play-by-play broadcast over the next hour. I am the resident naturalist with explore.org, and I'm joined today by the owner of our webcam partner site, Utopia Village, joined by Paul Avenant. Paul, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing really well. It's our first sunny day in a while, so I'm doing really well and happy to be on.
I'm really happy to be traveling at least virtually to a warm location because I think the forecasted low temperature where I am tonight is like minus 15 Fahrenheit, minus 26 Celsius. So it's going to be quite chilly where I am. But I get to share this amazing scene with you and people everywhere else who are watching the live cam with us. So if you're new to Explode.org, of course, welcome to the community. And we know we have a lot of Utopia Village fans joining us for the program today. So during this broadcast, what we're going to try to do is we're going to look at live footage of the underwater communities that we see on the Utopia Village cameras. We may have the opportunity to review some clips of memorable moments from the cams. Some of those are going to be recent. Some of those might be a little bit older, but since this is our first broadcast, we might bring in some of those older clips as well. And we're going to try to answer some audience questions too. This is something that I haven't normally done during a lot of play-by-play broadcasts for our other cameras, taking live audience questions, but I'm going to try it with this one. So if you do have questions for us, drop those in the chats. We'll have a moderator from Explode.org sending those in my direction, and I can share them with Paul as we head along. Let's start out, though, by introducing the location of Utopia Village. We're going to do a little bit of a fly-in through some Google Earth imagery to get down to the island itself. So we're headed to Central America, an island off of Central America. This is Utila Island off the north coast of Honduras. And more specifically, we're going to Utopia Village, which is on the south side of the island itself. We have several cameras at that location in partnership with Utopia Village, and we're going to try to take a look at each one of those, or at least groupings of them, because we have many of them available for us during the broadcast today. And Paul, this is where I want to get some more information from you right to start with, because the cameras really do look at different things. We get to see different wildlife on them, and they can change depending on maybe the time of the day, especially with those cameras at the dock. So maybe if you could talk about our dock cameras and what we can see during the day versus what happens at night.
Yeah, so on the dock, we have 5 cameras at the moment. Actually 6, because there's one on top of the dock that gives you kind of a surface view of the ocean. But there are 5 cameras under the water. 4 are mounted on the front of the dock, and one's mounted under the dock that kind of shows you the last 20 feet of the dock before you get to the ocean. And those cameras during the day, they're actually on a single channel, the front of dock camera on Explore, and they kind of cycle between the 5 cameras. And so there's a view from under the dock right now showing the reef under the dock. Those 2 posts you see are at the very front center of the dock. And on these dock cameras during the day, you're typically seeing kind of the typical Caribbean reef fish, the smaller fish, some small snappers, some small groupers, wrasse, blennies, things like that. Sometimes you'll see octopus or other things. There are crabs, etc. And then at night, there are lights under the dock. And so then each of those cameras will basically be on their own stream during the night. So it won't rotate between cameras. And then you also have opportunities to see things like sharks or lobster, eagle rays, stingrays, things like that. Typically more at night, but sometimes during the day as well.
Let's head out to some deeper water farther away from the docks, starting with the cameras that are in the channels. So we have, I think one of the original cameras that we had with you, Paul, was the channel cam. And that one was really, has always been a favorite of mine, really pretty. And then there's the back channel cam as well. Can you describe maybe the difference between those two cameras and which way they're looking?
Yes, so they're in those white sandy channels that lead to the wall. I should give a little bit of context. So the reef's quite shallow. There by the dock is maybe 8 feet of water. And then if you go to the bottom of the picture where those channel cams and other cams are, there's a reef wall that drops off almost 100 or 120 feet to the bottom of the ocean. So right there, what we call the wall is that part between where you see the lighter colored water and the sandy channels and the dark blue ocean where it drops off. And so the channel cam and the back channel cam are in one of those channels if you were swimming from the dock to the wall, which is about 400 feet from shore, roughly. And the channel cam looks towards the wall, and the back channel cam is it's mounted in the exact same location, but just looking 180 degrees the opposite direction back towards the dock. And so often on that channel, we'll see things like stingrays or eagle rays or stuff. You can see them depending on which direction they're coming from on the one camera. And then after a while, you'll see them on the other camera because they're going towards shore or to the wall in that channel.
And then the final three cameras that we have are kind of on that edge of that wall. So we have one literally named edge of the wall cam. There's the top of the wall cam, and then the new channel cam. How does maybe the activity as far as like fish and other animals differ here versus what we find a little bit further inland towards shallow water?
Yeah. I'd say the first thing I'd say it's clear that we're not very creative in how we name our cameras. But yes, and the edge of the wall cam was actually our first camera that was not on the dock. It was the first one we put out there, and it shows kind of a view. It's a pulled back view because what we were trying to get is the biggest possible view of what is passing by on the wall. On the wall passing by, you can see sharks. That was what we really were hoping for. But you also get eagle rays and things that they swim along the edge of the wall. They go east and west on that wall. And so the edge of the wall camera is giving you that view. And there's a lot of soft coral there. There are lots of small fish. You can see turtles and stuff there. But what we're looking for is things that pass by on kind of that transition from the top of the reef to the wall to where it drops lower down. And then right behind, just looking in the opposite direction, is the top of the wall camera, which is a completely different kind of view. And it actually was put in initially almost by accident. We were replacing the edge of wall camera with a newer, higher quality camera. And we were going to take the old camera out. And at the last moment, we just flipped it 180 degrees. And it's looking at sort of the coral head up close. So you see the sea fans up close. And what turned out, this I think right now is our most popular camera, is because it's almost like a screensaver. There's almost always activity on it. It's you normally see more small fish. You see small fry fish that are kind of feel protected in that coral and the soft coral, little wrasse and things like that. But sometimes you'll also see the turtles or sharks or whatever pass by the camera. But I'd say if you wanted to see a camera where there's like almost always some activity on it, it's this camera, and you see it up close, up tight, so you can even see the small fish pretty well.
And then the last one is the new channel camera. That one is nearby, but sometimes, Paul, you've told me you've been able to see different, or maybe like a shark or a turtle moving on the edge of the wall from one camera to the next. So that's I don't know enough about this type. It's not necessarily a highway, but that's a place where a lot of animals are moving back and forth right on that edge between the shallow water and the deep water.
Yes. So I'd say we've had cases where you've seen, so this camera is to the east of the edge of the wall and the top of the wall camera. So it's a little further towards the eastern side of the town. And it looks towards the wall. So it's on the screen right now. If you're looking down at the end of that little channel piece there is the wall. And so we've had where a turtle or an eagle ray, you can follow them. They will come past this camera first, and then you'll either see them on the top of the wall camera or the channel camera, and then you'll see them on the edge of the wall camera. Because that is, and it is a little bit like a highway. So especially eagle rays, sharks, and turtles will often, for whatever reason, they'll be cruising by on that edge of the wall or just on top of the wall or just off the wall. And
Well, there,
divers,
yeah,
just
there's
as an example, just as a thing, divers often, uh, the way they'll do their dive is, let's say they enter from our dock. They'll swim down one of those channels, almost from the dock cameras to the top of the wall or edge of the wall. And then they'll drop down the wall and to do the same as the eagle rays and stuff. They'll swim along the wall, maybe 60 foot down or 50 feet down in one of the two directions, and then return back up. And at the end of the dive, come up to the top again and then spend the end of the dive in those sandy channels.
before we move on to, I think, some of the live footage, I did have one question for you, Paul, about, when we look at this aerial photo right here, we can see there's almost like a geometry to the channels, the coral, the reefs themselves. Do you know if there's a reason for it forming in that sense? Why we would have like ridges of coral, and then they are broken by these sandy channels in between?
Don't know sort of an exact reason, and maybe there's a marine biologist in that will have a better answer. But around Utila, this is a formation which is quite common. And
Okay.
so normally reefs, like the most typical reef formation is called a barrier reef, which is a little bit further from shore and kind of is a protection barrier, and but behind it is water without reef, and then you get to the shore. Here in Utila, for the most part, it's a fringing reef. And so the reef goes all the way to shore. Like you could see there by the dock, as I said, it's 8 feet of water. And so I think it's just the natural way of how the currents flow in. And then coral reefs kind of form around structures like that. And I think it just has to do with depth and how they've grown. But I know that's not a really clear answer. And the short answer is I don't know why it forms those fingers. But in Utila, the reef looks like that. And for me, that's part of the incredible beauty, because you have these kind of fingers that run, and you experience two kind of dives where you're in those white channels that have reef walls on your sides. And then when you get to the wall, it's like you're dropping off into space where it drops down 120 plus feet.
And yeah, we're looking at some live footage right now. I think this is a nurse shark that is visiting one of the channels right now, Paul. This is one of the more common sharks in the area.
It's the most common shark around Utila is a nurse shark. And that one has come in and it's digging in the sand looking for snacks. We had a diver go out and clean the cameras just before the broadcast started, which we do most days. And if we have some fresh tuna from what we eat or all our rescue cats eat, they will pop a tuna head or something in the sand and something like that. And that's most likely what the shark is looking for. And nurse sharks are largely harmless. It's I don't want to minimize the nurse shark and make it feel bad, but in one way, they're like a big catfish. And they typically are not, they don't have the sharp teeth of like the lemon sharks or hammerheads. Their teeth are more meant to crush like shellfish or lobster and stuff. And the way they feed is by sucking crustaceans and stuff out of the reef and then like crushing them with their teeth. And this is a fairly big one, it looks like.
It's also has some hitchhikers, some remoras on there as well. Those are fish that are looking for maybe other animals to get disturbed by the shark, or maybe just some bits and pieces that the shark hasn't eaten.
Yes, they're we call them shark suckers, but they're remoras is their more official name. And you'll see them actually on most large species will be one or two remoras. So they can be with eagle rays or turtles, definitely with sharks. and they're basically scavenging off them. They can eat some stuff, I think, off their skin as well, like they'll clean them a bit. But the main thing they're looking for is when the sharks eat, they're messy eaters, and the remoras will go and feed on the scraps. They can be quite annoying. Sometimes with a diver, a remora that's lost its host will pick a diver or a snorkeler as their buddy. And it's both
Oh,
cool,
okay.
but it's also kind of annoying. It feels kind of weird when they suck onto your leg, and they really try to stick with you. We've sometimes had ones that stick with you until you get out of the water, and then they kind of give up and go and look for a different host.
They have an ability to actually physically attach, right? So it's just not that they are
Yes.
next to you; they can physically attach using basically the dorsal side of their body. Correct?
Yes, their mouth is kind of on the underside of their body, and so they'll suck onto you. And so I've had them suck onto my leg, which feels really weird. And the first time they do it, it's quite scary. But also they'll suck onto a tank sometimes and things like that. And when you see them with sharks or other things, they're not often. Sometimes they are, but they're actually just swimming very tightly in unison with them, and they kind of dart away a little bit and come back to them.
And we definitely want to talk about fish more during the program today. We already have a bunch of audience questions coming in, and the foundation of the ecosystem, Paul, happens to be the coral, right? And we had one person asking a question: are there particular coral species that are especially important or rare?
Uh, I think that's a good question. I'm going to give my answer, but I'm not a marine biologist. But I'd say, but both, the reef is made up of two kinds of corals. I'd say there's the hard corals, which make up the things that look like the rocky outcrops that you see. And they're really the foundation of the reef. They're the reef builder. So here's a good example. You're seeing mostly hard coral here. But if you switch to the top of wall cam, Brian, there you see soft coral, which in a sense looks more like plants that's growing on top of the hard coral. So the hard coral builds the bigger structures, and then soft coral kind of grows on top of it. Both of them have an important role. There's a lot of different species of coral in Utila. They all are important and have different functions, but the hard corals are kind of what make up the core of the reef. And so you have things like brain coral and pillar coral and star coral. And then the two kinds which are most of interest to us in terms of when we're trying to do coral restoration and kind of grow coral and plant it back onto the reef are called staghorn and elkhorn coral, which I don't know that in the channel cam, Brian, there is a small piece of staghorn kind of on the right hand edge of the camera. And so if you look at in this picture, right kind of in the center of the screen, almost on the very right hand side, there looks like a finger bouquet almost. And that's a piece of
Right about
staghorn
right
coral
about
that
there.
was just a little bit lower,
Okay,
Brian. And the reason
there we are.
we do most of the coral restoration work with that is because they grow pretty fast. And they also form really good habitats for small fish and things like that. So off the wall, there are some coral nursery trees where we grow fragments of corals, and the main coral that's grown is the staghorn coral that you see on the right-hand side of the picture, because it grows really fast and it's generally fairly easy to propagate it from small fragments. And so
We have
the
other
reef, the beauty
questions.
of the reef for me comes from the combination of those two things, the hard coral and the soft coral together kind of makes the most beautiful parts of the reef for me.
I would certainly agree with that. It's structurally it's very pretty to see, and it supports so much life. We have other questions about the reef that I'm going to try to get to in a little bit, but let's talk about maybe some of the fish that we're seeing on our live cam here, Paul. What can you tell us about these individuals that are visiting our view right now?
The bigger fish that are in here right now, different kinds of snapper, and then some smaller fish like the sergeant majors are the ones with the black and yellow vertical stripes that you just saw a few pass by. The ones that are there in the sand are different kinds of snapper. I think those are schoolmaster snapper, the ones with the yellow tails. And sometimes they'll have like vertical black bands. And they're just a while ago, the biggest one that was on was a mahogany snapper. There's also a yellowhead wrasse at the bottom, the one with the yellow head and then the white and dark tail. And these are all normal kind of fish you'd see around these areas. You'd see them in most places around the island. The fish population here is not significantly different from what you'd see diving anywhere around the island. And at different times of the days, like watching these cameras, this is one of my favorite ones because this is where you often will see moray eels or eagles or sharks, etc. But there can be times when you see nothing in it. There's just no activity and it looks like there's no fish. And then there'll be times where you just see hundreds of fish in here. And that's, for me, the beauty of like an open water camera. It's not in an aquarium, so it's not a controlled environment. It's not a fixed size. It's not the same fish you're seeing. And so it just changes all the time. There's a dog snapper is the one in the front right now, the big silvery one that has like a big teardrop under its eye. There's another one is a dog snapper. I actually don't know who names these things and why they're named that way. And
you know, there's one of the fish that we'll have a chance to see during the program today is a stoplight parrotfish, and I always thought that was the worst name for it because it just like I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. There's no stoplights in the ocean. I guess it just has a yellow spot on it in some phases of its life. But yeah, I think some of the fish could use a little bit of a better common name.
Yeah, they're quite common to see the stoplight parrotfish, so I hope we see them. What's interesting about them is a few things. They go through like a radical color change between the sexes and between when they age. And then like most parrotfish, I think the technically correct term is they're like sequential hermaphrodites because they almost all start as females and then some of them become males. And when that happens, they undergo a radical color change. They're like black, brown, white when they're in their intermediate phases, but when they become a male, they become this beautiful turquoise type of color. And the stoplight comes from the color of some dots, I think, at the end of their tail. So it's really interesting about them. The parrotfish are very common here. There are lots of different species of parrotfish. There are people that watch the channel always that are experts on every different kind. Like I'm sometimes, if I only say it's a parrotfish, then just know I'm not 100% sure what kind it is. But there's always someone on that will tell you, is it a stoplight parrotfish or a princess parrotfish or queen parrotfish? There are just so many kinds, and sometimes they look quite alike at different stages of their life.
And here's another nurse shark moving through. There was an audience question about whale sharks. Have you ever seen a whale shark on the cams, Paul?
No, the day we do, we will have a huge party. We love whale sharks. Utila is well known for whale sharks. It's sometimes called the whale shark capital of the Caribbean. Now, I have to say, after COVID, we've seen less whale sharks than before COVID. But like I don't know, had maybe 150 snorkel moments with whale sharks. And they are some of the coolest. They're the biggest fish in the ocean. They're sharks, not whales. But they feed on plankton, so they're plankton feeders. The closest we came is we saw a whale shark, I would say maybe 500 feet from roughly the spot where this and the edge of the wall camera is. A baby whale shark, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. But it's very rare to see them. So first of all, they need deeper water, so you won't see them this shallow. So they'll be off the wall. That's the closest you'll see them. And for some reason, it has to do with how plankton and stuff comes in on the currents to the island. They're generally not seen on this south shore part of the island. They're seen on the north side and on the eastern and western sides of the island.
Well, keep watching because we want to get
very cool. They're very cool, though. They're very cool, though. Yeah, there's a lot of activity here because, as I said, the cameras were cleaned. and there's at least one piece of tuna somewhere in that sand.
One other interesting question that we got from our audience is somebody was wondering if you could pick
Oh,
one fish
could I just say
that,
sorry to interrupt you?
yeah,
Sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. There was a rare grouper. Then there are lots of different groupers, but just a few seconds ago there was a Nassau grouper. It has like brown and white stripes that kind of go vertically out its body. It's rarer in this area. We don't see them that often, but recently we've been seeing more and more of them. And there was one on the camera just passing forward.
That's yeah. The excitement of the live cams is that you don't know what you're going to see. It could be the most common thing. It could be something really rare. So always keep watching. Keep take snapshots. We love seeing your snapshots. That helps us oftentimes find really incredible footage of things that happened on the cameras. So and I think I thought maybe I saw a parrotfish in the background, but we'll keep watching. Paul, another audience question is about fish. Somebody was wondering if you could pick one fish that perfectly tells the story of this reef, what would it be? That's maybe an impossible question to answer, but I'll put you on the spot.
Wow, that's a that's a that's a hard question. Let me think about that. I would say I would say most likely it's eagle rays for me, but I just have a bias for eagle rays. I love eagle rays, but it's almost impossible to pick that. Like later on, we can talk about what are the most unique things we've seen or what are the coolest things that we commonly see. But for me, eagle ray is just, it has an elegance and a beauty and interest to it. And when it comes on these cameras, first of all, in the beginning, we weren't sure if we would see any, but over the years, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of them. And so not only do you, this is a replay. It's not one coming on on command. I don't have the ability. And this is the first time we saw an eagle ray feeding in the sand. This one is feeding. It's just such a special moment for us. They're gorgeous, beautiful creatures. But when they're feeding like that, they dig their head fully into the sand. They're looking for crustaceans. They bring it into their mouth and then they crush it and then they blow the sand out their sides. And then they have this comical, almost Walt Disney like duck faces underneath their heads when they're close by. So that's a really hard question that whoever asked that. But I think if I had to say, I'd say eagle rays.
We have and to get a good view of their underside that you were just mentioning, Paul. We have a clip. I think it's number 18 in our list, where an eagle ray will kind of swoop in and then just ascend towards the surface
All right.
of the
I
water.
think this is a great one because the eagle ray comes in. Uh, it's kind of sniffing for food, but then at the last moment, it goes almost vertical like a fighter jet. And then you can see its face just completely clearly. And it has this goofy like smile on its face. It's hard not to love them. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great
just
clip, Brian.
magnificent.
And so people that dive with me a lot know that if I see an eagle ray on a dive, it's hard to kind of move me along. I just want to stay with the eagle rays, especially when they're feeding in the sand like that. You can sometimes get really, really close to them when they're feeding if you don't disturb them because they'll be focused on feeding and you can be within like a few arms lengths from them. And there are many, many people that have worried that my wife should be worried in terms of how excited I am around eagle rays, that they could be a threat to our marriage.
Well, if you're tuning in a little bit late, thanks for being here. I'm having a lot of fun talking with Paul Avenant, who is the owner of Utopia Village on Utila Island in Honduras. We're talking about tr- uh, coral reefs and the fish that we see in this area of the world. So this is live footage. We're back to live footage right now. Paul, one of the things that uh, is amazing about coral reefs is their diversity their color. We know that coral reefs around the world are threatened by climate change, warming waters. It's really a worrisome trend. I mean, we are kind of on track for these ecosystems to become functionally extinct by the end of the century, or maybe even within my lifetime, if we don't get our act together and slow climate change. Um, so people are kind of wondering about the healths of reefs and protections for them as well. One person wrote in and asked, when you dive, what are you looking for to tell you that this reef is alive and healthy? So maybe you could compare and contrast what you have through your experience, what indicates like a healthy, thriving reef, and maybe one that's being stressed.
So I'd say the first thing is that's a really good question. If you're diving and you're trying to assess the health of the reef, not scientifically, but just as sort of even a social diver, is you're looking at both the coral coverage, how much coral, hard coral and soft coral is there at various spots on the reef, and then what's the state of that coral. And the thing that I think most people are aware of now is more and more in the last 10 years, coral reefs have been bleaching. So like this reef right now, what you're looking at is quite healthy because there's a lot of hard and soft coral. There's good coverage. The coral's in good shape, etc. Now, if a year ago, this time still, it would have been a very different picture. The reefs on these different cameras were severely bleached because the ocean temperature was so hot for so long. And then the coral, the hard coral, loses all its color. And so then when you're looking at the coral, you'll see that it's almost white, like shockingly white. And what that is the coral is under so much stress that it expels all the symbiotic algae that lives within it and gives it its color. And because it needs that algae to feed on it, it basically starts starving. And if the conditions don't get better, the coral will die, and then that coral will be dead forever. And so when you're looking at the coverage and you're looking at the state of the coral. If you get really close to coral, you can see the polyps and how healthy they are and how active they are. And then there's a second thing which almost goes along with the heating is coral suffers from diseases just like humans or fish or whatever. And recently we've had in Utila more instances of coral bleaching over the last 5 years. And secondly, also more instances of coral diseases, which then kill the coral. And so I would say in the last 3 years or so, there's been a disease called stony coral tissue loss disease, which attacks hard coral, especially brain coral and pillar coral. And I'd say around Utila, the mortality rate around pillar coral was most likely 95%, and brain
Wow.
coral, I don't know, maybe 75%. And so that's really, I don't want to be like melodramatic. When that happens, when you're underwater, you either feel like crying or cry. Because it takes years and years and years for these corals to grow in the populations. And in the 10, 11 years that we've been here in Utila and that I've been a diver, I can clearly see how the coral is deteriorating because of those conditions. The combination of the ocean heating up, it's right at the upper limit right now of what corals can tolerate. And then secondly, the diseases like stony coral tissue loss. And it's really sad to see it. And people often talk, divers often talk that continually we're resetting the bar of what healthy coral is, and not in a good way. We're setting it lower. And so that someone that starts diving today will dive here at Utila and think, wow, this is pretty healthy coral, because it is still a pretty healthy ecosystem. But if they could compare it to 10 years ago, they'd say, oh my God, look what happened in the last 10 years. And a diver in 10 years from now will not have any sense of what healthy coral looks like. But that will become their definition of healthy coral.
There's a concept in conservation biology, and I think maybe I've talked about it a few times on some of our other exploratory cameras, but it's called shifting baselines syndrome. Basically, what you described, Paul, is that like what you see, what I see now, I might consider to be like a healthy reef ecosystem. But if I didn't experience it 50 years ago, so what I experience now may be in a degraded state, even though I consider it normal. So I think that's one of the things that we have to mentally fight against is we have to find ways to say, hey, you know what, there's what we see now, maybe it could actually be better despite the beauty, despite the amazing scenes that are right in front of us live on these cameras. We are looking at an ecosystem that is being stressed, and
I,
and
I,
is not maybe as rich as it was in the past.
I think so. And I think it's part of the reason why most divers that I've met are almost naturally conservationists, because they're in this beautiful environment and they experience it, but they also experience the impact of things that we have to admit can feel kind of fuzzy to us. You know, it's different if I told you, well, my house is burning down. That's a sense of urgency you immediately get and you can see the flames. Versus if I tell you, well, the oceans are warming very slowly. And then you say, well, how much are they warming? Well, they warmed 2 degrees over the last 10 years or something. It just doesn't seem. But if you're a diver and you can see underwater what's happening to the coral, the estimates are, I think, in the last 10 years that 50% of the world's coral has died. And the Great Barrier Reef is a great example of that. And so I think if you're a diver, you see that. And I feel like the coral reefs are like a canary in a coal mine that are just yelling at us to say something really bad is happening, but most people can't see it because it's under the water. And I didn't know this. I think it's true. I've read multiple places that in terms of the additional warming from, I don't want to use a term that's politically charged, but global warming or climate change or whatever, 80 or 90% of it is absorbed into the ocean. So the ocean is actually at the very leading edge of the negative impact of that. Now you can see quite a lot of activity. And that's a big mahogany snapper, I think, that's just coming into picture, and you see the nurse shark still digging, and the other fish are around it because it's hoping it will stir up something for it to grab. There's a lot of yellowtail snapper in there right now.
These congregations of fish, Paul, are always so interesting to me because they essentially are all carnivores, maybe with rare exception here and there, but they're all eating other animals at some point in time. Yet the fish are just kind of like mostly just cool with each other. They don't necessarily see each other as a threat, but we know that they eat each other too. So that's always one of those things. And I don't fully understand it because I just don't know enough about fish. But that's always one of the fascinating things about these aggregations. And then we have another big guy coming right in the center of the screen here. I don't know if you know anything that could help uh, alleviate my confusion about what happens when you have so many fish in this area, but they're not necessarily targeting one another for food.
I think they just don't like to do it in public. So first of all, just to clarify, a number of the fish are herbivores. So the parrotfish are herbivores, and they're an essential part of the ecosystem because they actually keep the reefs healthy. Back to the first question, they might be a better example than eagle rays of something that really kind of represents the reef, because the parrotfish eat the algae that would smother the coral off the reef. That's the first thing they do. And then with that, with their teeth, they scrape off parts of the rock, and then they poop it out as the white sand. So that white sand you're seeing there, that's parrotfish poop. I don't have a more diplomatic way to say it, but that's, and so they're herbivores. And then as to why, even if you go on an African safari, you're sometimes surprised that you'll see a big herd of impala grazing close to a pack of lions. And I think, and you're like, why would they be there? And I think it's a mixture of because some of the times they're not bothering. They're not always trying to eat one another. And there's also a safety in numbers type of thing. And so it's a weird thing in all the years of diving. I have 1,000+ dives. I'm trying to see, in all the years of diving, I've only seen 2 live predatory events where something ate something else and I witnessed it. And on the cameras, I think we've only seen 3. That's in almost 5 years or so. And on the cameras, there's almost always someone watching. That's one of the joys of explore.org, that someone's always watching, and when they see it, they'll log it. And so you just don't see that many predatory events. So I think I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I think it's a little bit like, we know that by driving in our cars, we risk being in accidents and getting injured and killed, but we still drive in our cars because we need to get somewhere. We need to eat or shop or something. And I think fish are the same. They're all living together. Yes, sometimes someone will feed on someone else, but they're not therefore like just staying away from one another. And you'll see weird behaviors that, like when a lemon shark is swimming, you'll often see things like horse-eyed jacks, which will be following closely behind it. Now, technically, the lemon shark could eat the horse-eyed jacks, but also the horse-eyed jacks know that lemon sharks are messy eaters, and they're there to pick up scraps. And so it's a risk-reward thing.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that information helping to clarify some of those thoughts that I had in my mind, whether they were valid or illogical or not.
By the way, now you could see a little bit of the placement of these two cameras. Brian just switched from the channel cam to the back channel cam. If you remember, I said the one is just, they're mounted on the same post, just looking 180 degrees in opposite directions. And so you could see some of those fish that we were watching on the channel cam, you just watch them swim on the back channel cam.
And one of the things I think that we wanted to talk about during the program today too is some of the more amazing or more rare sites that we have seen on the Utopia Village cameras. Maybe before we get to the rare sightings, we had an audience question which is just in line with something that we were talking about before the broadcast. Somebody wrote in and was wondering, Paul, what are some species you are most excited about seeing on the reef? Talked about eagle rays, so I think we can definitely add that to the list. What about other species?
So if you think about species that we see fairly commonly around Utila and even on the cameras, but that are most exciting to me, and I think for most people, I'd say the eagle rays are definitely at the top of the list. I'd say sharks, like the nurse sharks, are definitely there. Turtles would be for me next. And so, Brian, I don't know if you have a clip of a turtle or something, but turtles would be here around Utila. We have 3 different species of turtles. We have hawksbill turtles, green turtles, and loggerhead turtles. And you can often see them on the wall or in the channel. And so
I think
I'd say
this might
they
be one
would
of a
be,
green sea turtle.
That's a green turtle. And this one is so close. We wish they would always, do the right thing and be right close to the camera, like that turtle was. Sometimes you see them in the distance and you're hoping turn right, turn right, turn right, and they turn left. But you can just see how beautiful they are. And this is a younger one. We have an older turtle that, I don't know, we've seen her, I think, for at least 10 years. That we call our house turtle. She has come up on our beach and made a nest twice in those 10 years. And you can tell that it's her. This is another green turtle, I think. You can tell that it's her because she has a unique pattern of barnacles on her back. And so you start to feel almost like you know them, some of them, because you see the same one over and over. On the previous turtle shot that Brian had up there, after the green turtle passed the screen, there was a big Cubera snapper. It's hanging out there in the back of the channel now. This one has been named many things, which I can't remember what the latest name is, but that also has been around for 6 or 7 years. And we can clearly know he has scars on his sides, etc. And so we see him over and over. And when we dive with them, it's like you're almost seeing an old friend.
And that's, one of the other special things about watching these wildlife webcams is that, it's harder for us to maybe get to know things like fish on an individual level. But, there's only so many Cubera snapper in the area. There's maybe only so many turtles in the area. We might have that chance to watch them grow over time and get a little more insight into their lives as uh,
And there
individuals. And
are,
here's, I think,
and the,
one last clip of a turtle swimming slowly through the channel.
yeah, and the unexpected thing of the Explore cameras that I didn't like think about, sometimes when divers are in the water, the fish will be a little bit more skittish because they have bubbles and they look like big, scary monsters. But with the cameras, the fish are truly in their natural state. And so, and you're seeing it all the time. And so you just have your odds are higher of seeing either the same thing or seeing interesting things. Uh, and so I kind of digressed. I got so wrapped up in turtles because I love turtles as much as I love eagle rays. If you wanted to ask me what are one of the other cool favorites, not just for me, but people watching, I'd say it's octopus. And I think Brian, like clip 04
Yes,
is a good
we do have,
octopus one.
yeah, we do have
We
some
have we
octopus
have a
clips.
fair amount of octopus sightings. And octopus are, it's hard to describe, but they're just such amazing creatures. You can see it on the right of the screen here coming over the coral. I think this is a Caribbean reef octopus. And they're so smart. They move in such weird ways. They look like for sure they have to be alien creatures. This one's looking for fish. It's hunting. You can see it kind of wrap its arm around and it's trying to chase it into its mouth, which is under its head. And you'll see some dramatic color changes. So octopus may be I don't know what the word would be, the coolest thing to see in terms of just when you watch it during the day or during the night. They're like magical creatures. You can't almost believe that they're like real, that they're not
I
just
am
like,
fascinated by octopus because they are just, they're not only are they extremely smart, but their body plans are so different from us since they don't have an internal skeleton, they don't have an exoskeleton. They are basically kind of freed. Their body plan, they can do so much with their body that other organisms can't. And their arms contain so many neurons. It's almost like they have like separate mini brains in their bodies. Like they do have like a centralized brain, but then they have so many neurons in each arm that they have brains elsewhere in their bodies as well. And their arms behave independently of their centralized brain. They're all, all these different body parts are talking to one another. But I almost like challenge the this our sense of what a body is, just because of the way that they operate. Their color changes, their ability not only to change color, Paul, but also change textures as well. If you ever get to see that in person, like at an aquarium, or if you're diving somewhere or snorkeling, I mean, that is just incredible to see. The first time and only time I've seen that in the wild, I was just absolutely mesmerized by their ability to mimic the substrate.
yes, they're just amazing creatures to watch. If I see one on a dive, I don't want to go further. I'll spend the whole dive just watching it because of how they move, how intelligent they are, how curious they are. Uh, we have someone that may be watching this. I don't know. Their name is Kirk. I call them the octopus whisperer because when they go on dives, you have great octopus encounters. But octopus will often approach you and be curious and like stick their tentacles out and try to touch your camera or your hand or stuff like that. They really are. And of course, you've all seen like clips of octopus opening bottles or using coconuts as shells. Uh, and then like these are pretty big octopus, but they can also cram themselves into the tiniest of space so that you can see an octopus and then the next moment they're gone because they've just kind of stuffed themselves into a hole in the reef.
That's the advantage of not having a skeleton. And really, they just have like uh, their beak. That's a hard bony part, but the rest of their body is completely soft. So I was reading about them this afternoon, and they can just squirm their way through the tiniest of cracks. Um, so they are fascinating animals. I always love to see them. Uh, Paul, we have about 10 minutes left in the program, and there is one big question that I wanted to ask you. Uh, because we have a lot of clips that we could go to, but what are some of the animals or some of the clips that you're most excited to share with us? Probably don't have time for them all, but if you were kind of going to give us like the top 2, 3 clips over the last year or so, What would those be?
Yeah. For me, they're easy ones. The first one is a hammerhead shark. And it's just because the first day we put a camera on the wall, the reason for that was we said, we hope we can see a hammerhead shark. And it took almost 6 years. And then this, I think this is actually the second one. You can see it kind of behind the coral there on the side. So you can't see it great. We were hoping it would turn the other way, but that was a big deal. People were WhatsApping me that were watching it on the cameras. I wasn't at home. And I'd say we were so excited to see it. And since then, we've had 2 more sightings of the hammerhead shark. And that has, because it has the history of that when we put the first wall camera in, the reason we did, we said, we hope one day we will see a hammerhead shark. So that's number one. I'd say number 2 for me would be the scorpion fish. And the scorpion fish is like a highly venomous fish that's super camouflaged. There's one right now on this picture, this is on the top of the wall camera, and I don't know if people can see it, but it's there at the bottom of the picture.
So we'll leave this screenshot here just for a few more seconds because we want people to search for this fish. If you don't know where it is now, you'll know where it is as we play the footage. But Paul, I'll let you cue our producer Brian when you want to play this. But scorpion fish are
and so the reason
camouflaged.
The reason they're on is because they're quite rare to see, and partially because they're so hard to see if you're diving. They're super venomous. If you touch them or something, it would really pain a lot. And so what we had on this camera, the top of the wall cam, someone noticed a scorpion fish once. And then it came back. You can't be 100% sure it's the same one, but we were pretty sure it is. And so it came back, and it has a name called Waldo, because it's always like, who's seen Waldo, or where is Waldo? And he'll show up from time to time, or she. And so that in itself was cool. But what we have in this clip, which Brian will play now, is a predatory event where it actually catches a damselfish. And so you could see it then, and you could see something which is rare to see, an actual predatory event. So Brian, maybe you could play the clip in full speed or slow motion. So there you saw it. I don't know if you could go back, Brian. So the scorpion fish was right there in the bottom center, and it just grabbed a damselfish unsuspectingly was swimming by.
It just happened so fast. That damselfish didn't.
So that's like rare to see. If you were a diver and you did 1,000 dives, you might never see that. You'd see scorpion fish, but you wouldn't see the predatory event. They're rare because this one has the name Explored. It's an example of explore.org working, because we would miss these things if there wasn't someone always watching and posting snapshots on the site. So that would be my second one. And the third one is seahorses are quite rare. People that visited us when we were divers, that'd often be their top request. I'd like you to show me a seahorse. And around Utila, we feel like we could always find a seahorse, but there are none because of how strong the currents and the surge sometimes is in this area. We very rarely, when diving, see a seahorse on the wall. And when it is, it's on the wall. But here we saw a seahorse in the back channel. And the chances of someone noticing it, whoever saw it of our Explore people, kudos to them. And in this case, it wasn't just that we saw it, and it's on screen right now. You can't see it. It's on the very left bottom of the screen. It's kind of masked by the fan. But then this seahorse did, almost like on command, it swam across the channel, which is something that you won't often see it. And so you could see it now starting to move. It's just coming over the white sand. It's the little black, and it's hidden in the rock. It's going to be, if we're patient, you'll see it a little bit better. And it's a tiny, tiny little seahorse. And at some point, you really see a clear view. There you can see the shape, that classic seahorse shape. And so not only did we see, I've never seen diving in this part of the island in front of our resort, a seahorse. So it's the first time I've seen it. And then for it to be so in the open and kind of, you can watch it swim across, it's in the top 3 easily.
I didn't even know you saw a seahorse until you shared this clip with us. So that's um, they're fascinating creatures, such different body plans from other other fish. Uh, yeah, glad we were able to share this with everybody. And again, our webcam audience, like it's rare for anything to escape their eyes. So thanks to everybody who has always been watching, taking snapshots, telling us and sharing your experiences with everybody. Uh, in future broadcasts, we're going to probably be sharing a lot more clips from things that our webcam audience has found or that Paul has found interesting. With our last few minutes here, let's we'll head back to live footage, looking at the top of the wall right here. And we did have probably too many audience questions to answer in just the last few minutes, Paul. But people are again wondering about protecting reefs. And how we can do that. People are also wondering about sort of like your local area as well. One person was wondering is if who is involved in protecting this reef locally. So is there formal protections like through the Honduran government to protect this area, or is it more of a community based thing where the people of Utila Island decided, hey, this is something that we are protecting for the future?
It's a mixture of both. I think there is a Honduran conservation federation run by, a government department, the ICF. And there are certain areas around Utila where there are no take zones. There are laws that say you can't catch shark and kill sharks, for example, things like that. But I'd say here, most likely the government regulations are not that effective, and the effective stuff have to happen with some level of community involvement. And so in almost every small island, you will find small nonprofits, conservation organizations that are trying to make a difference or trying to do something, whether it's with shark research or, as I talked about here, there's an organization called BICA, the Bay Island Conservation Association. They're involved with the coral restoration. There's a small organization in Roatan called Ilili, which is doing shark research. So those are the people that really are trying to do something, and then the local municipality and the local dive shop sometimes work together to do things. So that's the short answer. I felt like you may have asked a bigger question, like, what can we do to help protect
Yes, that
the
was actually
reefs?
going to be my final question for you with just a couple of minutes left. I mean, we have this opportunity to protect these ecosystems for the future. So, in short, what advice do you have for us who want to protect reefs for the future? What can we do to ensure the survival of reefs and fish populations?
It's a difficult question, and it can sometimes feel overwhelming because it just seems like, how can you make a difference? And so I'd give a three-part answer, which I hope is helpful in some way. The first one is by sharing cameras like this, or diving or snorkeling, and just experiencing the ocean, and one, recognizing its beauty, and secondly, recognizing the importance that it plays in the ecosystem of islands and coastal regions in terms of protecting them, food, all that stuff. So that would be number one. Just make yourself aware, be in the ocean, share the beauty of the ocean. The second one is, because it can feel so overwhelming, what can we do that addresses climate change or whatever? It's easy to just do nothing. And I would implore people to do something. Know that you can do something. Donate to a local organization that's doing coral restoration. You can adopt coral nursery trees. You can support people that are doing shark research or plastic cleanup. Do something. Don't do nothing because it feels so overwhelming. We have 10 coral trees by us. They will not save all the coral reefs in the world, but the fact that the organizations are planting it back onto our reef are helping in some small way. And I would say do something. If you haven't ever heard the story of the little boy and the starfish on the beach, just Google it, and it will just motivate you to say, I can make a difference in some small way, even if the problem seems big and overwhelming. And then the third thing, and I don't want this to sound like a political thing, it's not, but the way how we protect these reefs and protect the ocean and the marine life is we have to vote for and elect and support politicians that believe in science, and that believe that the warming of the oceans is real and that it's worth doing something to do that, to protect that. And so look for people that care about science and care about the environment and support them in your local politicians or your national politicians. That would be my answer. It's a very difficult problem, but those would be my 3 parts.
Well, very well said. Great advice. And we should do this again sometime, Paul. There's always going to be something to talk about for sure with these live cams. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to share the joy and wonder of these amazing places.
You're very welcome, Mike. And thank you for everyone that supports the channel and that watches and then posts clips and snapshots of things they see. It helps us both to enjoy it, but it also in some cases helps scientists to get information that they use in terms of when they're mapping populations and stuff like that. So thank you very much.
And I want to thank our audience who sent us all those great questions. Sorry we couldn't answer them all. I want to thank our producer, Brian, from explore.org. And I want to thank Paul Avenant from Utopia Village for being here alongside me. My name is Mike Fitz with explore.org. Join us again for other live events with our live cams. Until then, enjoy the ocean and have a great day.